If you ever cut wood with a buck saw or a bow saw and the piece of wood that you cut ends up looking like a skateboard ramp, this video is for you. What's up guys, Dan here from stormy Pennsylvania. I was gonna go out, okay, well I'm outside, I'm on our overhang where our classroom area is, but it is like monsoon rains and then it just drizzles a little bit and then monsoon rain, it's a mess out. So I'm just doing stuff around the school building today, and one of the things I was doing was playing around with my Bucksaw, and I wanted to do a video on this exact issue that I showed at the beginning. If you ever used a Bucksaw or a bow saw and while you're sawing, next thing you know you're like holding your saw crooked and you're doing all kind of crazy stuff and the cuts end up being all curved and not nice and straight, well, it's not the saw, unfortunately, it's you. Okay, so with either one of these saws you can interchange these depending on what you're actually using. Of course, we have our blade down here underneath, and no matter what you do with this, we're going to talk about it, this blade is going to have some flex in it. It is part of the design of the saw. Is it a good part of the design? No, but it just happens because of the way the saw is. Now some people say, well, put extra washers in here or make this real tight, screw these screws down real tight. That will take some of the wiggle out back and forth, but it's not going to take that much out. And then other people start to tighten their windlass a lot. That's a really bad idea because, again, wooden saws, you can cause a lot of damage doing that to them. So you just have to know how to properly use this thing in order to get nice straight cuts, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. Alright, so when using your Bucksaw or your bow saw, okay, the most important thing is that we keep this part of the saw nice and straight, okay? That's number one. When you do that, that's setting yourself up for success further on down, because it's a chain reaction. The minute you start to change your saw angle this way or this way, that blade angle is now going to somewhat follow that. So we want to always make sure when we're going to cut that we're keeping our saw nice and straight, just like this, onto the piece of wood. Secondly, okay, is we want to make sure as we saw that we just let the weight of the saw do its job. We are not pushing. Now when I say that, I don't mean pushing back and forth. You have to create this motion, but what you're not doing is putting pressure down. Let the weight of the saw, which is not much, let the weight of the saw though cut into this piece of wood. So as I get in position here in order to cut, you can see my saw looks nice and straight, and I'm going to start to draw my blade back. Alright, now usually you're not going to be able to get a forward cut right away. You got to put one or two draw cuts back to get it started, and then all I'm doing now is controlling this top portion. I'm not worried about the blade. If my top portion stays nice and controlled and I'm not putting downward pressure, what you're going to find is your saw is going to start to give you a nice clean cut. Okay? The problem is we start to rush, we start to get tired, we get worn out, and then we're about done with this. So we start to rush more and more than when we do this, and then when that happens, we don't get a nice straight cut. So very important that we keep all this nice and clean, and then you end up with that straight cut that we've been looking for. Alright, so look at that difference there. Huge, right? This one looks like a skateboard ramp, and this one that we just cut nice and straight. So big difference there when you let the saw do the work and you are just controlling that straight saw rather than worrying about pressure downward. Let the saw do its job and you will be a happy camper. Alright, and there you go. That is how you make nice straight cuts. Hopefully you don't ever struggle again, because that is very frustrating, and I can tell you from personal experience, especially at the Bushman class when we do cutting of heavy, big lumber, okay? This becomes more and more of an issue, and then you got to go back and you're trying to clean it up. You just got to take your time and let the saw do the work. And if you do that, you're going to have a nice straight cut. Alright, and that's today's video. So if you like that one, hit like and subscribe down below. You can also check us out over Coalcracker, for all our classes, our gear, and our blog. We also have Bucksaws available, these handmade wooden Bucksaws that they pack down really nice and easy. I'll put the link down in the description. You can check those out. And until next video, stay in the woods and cut straight.